All right, welcome to The Explainer. We've got a lot to get through today because we are breaking down two really major developing stories coming out of the White House. This is all from August 8th. First, a surprise diplomatic summit with Russia. And second, a brand new military directive targeting drug cartels. Let's get into it.
Okay, so let's jump right in with what is easily the biggest headline of the day. Late today, President Trump actually confirmed that a face-to-face meeting is set with Russian President Vladimir Putin. And get this, it's going to be right here in the United States. The stated goal? To finally end the war in Ukraine. So this meeting, it's not just another headline, right? This is a huge, and I mean really sudden pivot in U.S. strategy for this conflict. So you're probably wondering, how in the world did we get to this point so fast? Let's break it down. I mean, this is a complete 180 in policy. Just think about it. The administration had this hard deadline set for today, saying, hey, if the intensified fighting doesn't stop, new sanctions are coming. But now, instead of bringing down the hammer with penalties, the White House is rolling out the welcome mat for diplomacy. It's a total flip. And really, it's the speed of this shift that's just remarkable. Because reports are saying the fighting has actually gotten worse, not better. And yet, here we are. We've gone from a non-negotiable deadline for sanctions to a planned summit, all in the span of just 1 week. It's pretty wild. Okay, so what do we actually know about this summit? Let's get into the nitty-gritty, because the details, the who, the where, the when, are absolutely crucial. They're what could make this a truly historic meeting. So, the key players, obviously, are President Trump and President Putin. They're set to meet in Alaska next Friday. But it's who's not on that list that really jumps out. Ukrainian President Zelensky will not be at the table. Now, that's significant. But the source does note something interesting. He's expected to be ready to sign something. That suggests, he's at least being kept in the loop on whatever comes out of this. And that right there brings us to what is, without a doubt, the most consequential and frankly, controversial part of this whole potential deal. What is actually on the table? What are they going to be talking about?
So, with Ukraine not physically in the room, the big question, the elephant in the room, is what could a peace deal brokered between just Washington and Moscow even look like? Well, the answer seems to be something that could literally involve redrawing maps.
And yeah, check this out. This is a direct quote from President Trump in the report, and it is a real stunner. He flat out suggests that a core piece of these talks could be a land exchange. His words were, some swapping of territories to the betterment of both. Wow. Okay, so let's be clear. While this bombshell idea of a land swap is now on the table, the administration is also being very upfront about how incredibly hard this would be. The president himself called it very complicated and said it's nothing easy. That really signals that this isn't some simple trade, It's a deeply complex diplomatic chess game they're talking about. So naturally, he was asked about the high stakes here, right? And he kind of pushed back on the idea that this is some sort of last chance ultimatum for Russia. Instead, he framed it way more optimistically. He said his gut, his instinct, tells him they have a real shot at getting a peace deal done. Okay, but wait, there's more. The Russia summit, as huge as it is, wasn't the only big announcement today. On the very same day, the White House dropped a completely separate directive. And this one targets a whole different kind of conflict, the war on drug cartels. So, what this new directive does is it orders the Pentagon to start drawing up plans, options for using U.S. military force against certain drug cartels down in Latin America. Now, here's the key part, the justification. They're officially deeming these cartels terrorist organizations. And that reclassification, that's a really powerful move. Why? Because it could legally unlock the door to military action in a way that just wasn't possible before. But officials are pumping the brakes a little bit, stressing two big things. One, they say nothing is imminent. And two, this whole thing raises a ton of complex legal questions that need to be sorted out.
Phew. So, after a total whirlwind of a news day, let's take a breath. What are the big takeaways here? What are we supposed to make of these two gigantic parallel announcements hitting at the same time?
So, when you really step back and look at the whole picture, you see two dramatically different playbooks being rolled out on the very same day. On one hand, for a state adversary like Russia, you have this sharp pivot toward diplomacy. On the other hand, for non-state groups like cartels, you have a new directive to prepare for potential military force. It's quite a contrast.
And that leaves us with the big, critical question, doesn't it? Are these just two separate strategies for two totally different problems? Or, when you put them together, are we seeing the beginnings of a broader foreign policy doctrine? One that favors high-stakes, face-to-face diplomacy with nations, but at the same time keeps military options on the table for these non-state threats. That's the real question to keep in your mind as both of these major stories continue to unfold.